small town. The NFL didn't start under stadium lights or national TV deals. It started in an auto showroom in Canton, Ohio in 1920 when a group of small town team owners formed the American Professional Football Association. These teams had names like the Decatur Staleys, Rock Island Independents, and Dayton Triangles. And the league's biggest challenge weren't Super Bowls. They were things like finding refs, paying players, and not folding halfway through the season. In 1922, the league rebranded as the National Football League, but it was still a mess. Players wore leather helmets, forward passes were rare, and games looked more like wrestling matches with a ball. Most teams were focused on Midwestern factory towns, and rosters were a revolving door of part-timers. Championships were awarded by committee vote, not actual games, and franchises disappeared faster than they were created. But despite the chaos, this era was the muddy, scrappy origin story the NFL needed: depression. In 1933, the NFL finally got serious. They created two divisions, scheduled a championship game, and began introducing rules to encourage offense, like allowing the ball to be passed from anywhere behind the line of scrimmage. It was the beginning of real structure. Players like Bronco Nagurski became stars by bulldozing through defenses, while Sammy Baugh revolutionized the passing game, leading the league in completions, punting, and interceptions. But then came the Great Depression and World War II, and the league had to get creative just to survive. Rosters were depleted as players enlisted, and some teams merged just to stay alive. Most famously, the Eagles and Steelers combined into the temporary Steagles. The talent level dipped, but the league kept going. And when the war ended, a wave of returning veterans and booming post-war economy set the stage for something bigger. The NFL wasn't national yet, but it had serious momentum. Romantic. Think of this as the NFL's black and white film era. Heroic, gritty, and unforgettable. In 1950, the NFL merged with the all-rival All-America Football Conference, AAFC, absorbing teams like the 49ers and Browns. Yeah, the Browns were once dominant. This decade saw the permanent arrival of free substitution, meaning players no longer had to play both offense and defense, and strategies became far more sophisticated. Televised games become more common, and stars like Johnny Unitas, Norm Van Brocklin, and Jim Brown turned Sunday football into appointment viewing. The league also introduced sudden death overtime in the regular season. That change paid off big in 1958 when the Colts and Giants played in what's been dubbed the greatest game ever played, a nationally televised championship that went to OT and introduced football to a mainstream American audience. This era wasn't just about innovation, it was about myth making. It gave fans heroes, drama, and a league that suddenly looked like it could be America's next great pastime. League war. Imagine the NFL as the older sibling suddenly being challenged by a cocky younger brother. That was the AFL. In 1960, the American Football League launched the fresh logos, flashy offenses, and a more inclusive approach to recruiting players, especially from historically black colleges. The AFL wasn't just competing, it was winning over fans with high-scoring games and dynamic players like Len Dawson and Lance Alworth. Meanwhile, the NFL was digging in with its own stars like Bart Starr and legendary Vince Lombardi. The tension between leagues reached a boiling point over draft picks, salaries, and TV deals. Eventually, the two sides agreed to merge, but not before they introduced a little something called the Super Bowl in 1966. The first two contests were lopsided NFL wins, but in 1969, the underdog Jets beat the Colts in Super Bowl III thanks to Joe Namath's iconic guarantee. The AFL had finally proven it belonged, and by 1970, the merger was official. The war was over, and the NFL was forever changed. Defense. After the AFL-NFL merger became official, the league reorganized into the format we know today, the AFC and NFC. But instead of being defined by offense, this era became all about punishing defenses. The rulebook hadn't yet been changed to perfect offensive player safety, so defenders were allowed to jam, hit, and intimidate wide receivers all the way down the field. Quarterbacks took beatings that would easily get defenders ejected today. Scoring dropped, and teams like the Steel Curtain Steelers, and the Purple People Eaters Vikings, and the Doomsday Defense Cowboys turned brutal defense into an art form. The 1977 season remains the lowest scoring modern year, with teams averaging only 17 points per game. Even offenses were tailored around avoiding disaster. Run the ball, control the clock, don't let your QB get murdered. But it was a beautiful, gritty style of football that created dynasties. Yet it wasn't great for TV rating, understandably so. So in 1978, the league stepped in to open things up. Passing. In 1978, the NFL introduced a package of rule changes designed to boost offense, and they worked. Linemen could now extend their arms to block, and defensive backs could only make contact with the receivers within 5 yards of the line. The result? Quarterbacks suddenly had breathing room, and passing games exploded. Offenses like Air Coryell and San Diego turned the vertical passing game into poetry. The West Coast offense, championed by Bill Walsh and Joe Montana, used timing and precision to carve up defenses. The 80s were filled with aerial fireworks. Dan Marino threw for over 5,000 yards in 1984, a record that stood for decades. And receivers like Jerry Rice and Michael Irvin became superstars. Meanwhile, TV ratings soared as games became more exciting, and highlight reels turned QBs into rock stars. For the first time, passing wasn't just part of the game, it was the game. Free agency. The 1993 season flipped the NFL's business model on its head. Players gained true free agency, allowing them to test the market and choose where they belong. It created a tidal wave of movement. Reggie White's signing with Green Bay showed what a superstar could do for a franchise. He helped them win a Super Bowl. Suddenly, teams had to get smart with cap space, draft strategy, and long-term planning. The salary cap was introduced in 1994, further evening the playing field. Meanwhile, on the field, parity ruled the day. The Cowboys built a dynasty, the Broncos finally broke through, and a 6th-round pick named Tom Brady entered the chat in 2000. It was the beginning of a new era, one where any team could win, stars could switch jerseys, and the offseason became almost as interesting as the actual games. Twitter. Football wasn't just being played anymore. It was being tweeted, memed, and debated in real time. The NFL expanded to 32 teams with the Houston Texans in 2002, locking in the 4-division per conference format forever. That same year, the league moved the Super Bowl to February, introduced Thursday night games, and embraced the 24/7 news cycle. Fantasy football exploded. Red zone became a religion, and quarterbacks were putting up numbers like Madden settings were stuck on rookie mode. Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, and Peyton Manning shattered passing records. Tom Brady started collecting rings like Pokemon cards. Rule changes made defense harder than ever. No hitting high, no hitting low, and heaven forbid you land on the quarterback. But fans were glued to every moment, and the league became a cultural juggernaut. Sundays were sacred, Twitter timelines were toxic, and the NFL ruled them all. If you like this video, YouTube thinks you'll like this next one, so stick with Football for Dummies and give it a watch.